Alright, so I received an email, and I'm going to read through the email and I'm going to provide my feedback. Alright, it says, "Hi Freddie, it's about Bruce Lee." It says, "Hi Freddie. It said, I've done a lot of research on Bruce. It looked like Linda tried to cover up a lot of things. I just don't know what is myth and what is fiction. What I read one day was that before martial arts, Bruce was a national cha-cha dance champion. Maybe in his youth. That's true. That is true." Alright, next one. Said, "Also I learned he injured his back while doing strength training." Yes, he did injure his back. It was from that exercise, the good mornings, where he had I think he had 135 pounds over here, and he was bending down like this to work that lower back, and that's how he injured his back. He said that now this guy's saying, read that doctors told him he would never be able to kick above his waist level again. I think the doctors actually told him he'll never be able to do martial arts again, something like that. Alright, now he said, then he did Game of Death in spite of the pain. And he said he was on steroids for his back. Normal back injury prescription back in the days. I didn't know about that part. I'm going to comment on that later. Now he says, and also eating cannabis, which I believe was also a doctor's prescription for the injury. I'll comment on that one later. And then now he says, if all this is true, he must have been very sad and depressed at the time of his life, but maybe too proud to show it, just like he still kicked above waist in Game of Death. Now he says, it's weird because if he hadn't died, everyone would have ended up knowing about his injury, and I don't know how we would remember him if that had been the case. Now it says, I don't think he would have ever wanted the world to know about his back pain. He could have been depressed and hiding it. Do you have any idea if these claims are true? Alright, so as far as him taking steroids for his back pain, I never heard about that one. I never knew that they would do something like prescribe something like that. But if that is the case, if he was prescribed steroids for his back pain, that would make sense to say why he was so ripped in the movie Enter the Dragon. You notice his other movies, he wasn't nearly as cut and ripped, but in Enter the Dragon, his whole body was so sculpted, and you could see every little muscle fiber. And if he was on steroids because of his back pain, that would explain that. And then it also would take away, it would demystify his physique, to make you think that that he achieved this type of look through natural training and natural foods. If he was on steroids, it'd be like, hey, basically it would take away from his legendary status in my opinion, because basically it's not really hard work and effort that did, in training that made his physique that looked that way. It was more of the steroids. But I don't know if that's true or not. I never heard that one before. I never heard of any information of claiming that he was ever on steroids, so I don't know if that's true. Now, as far as him eating cannabis, I've heard that in many different texts that I read about him, and it wasn't prescribed. The cannabis was not prescribed, from my understanding. Basically, he was going through a lot of stress, and he had a lot of stress, and it was hard for him to basically relax. And basically, he had friends, because he had friends that were like movie stars and actors, people that had a lot of money. His friends would be like, hey, try out this cannabis, it'll help you relax, because he was just all stressed out all the time. And then what he would do is he would put this cannabis on some cookies and eat the cookies, and that would help him relax. But at the same time, from my research, it said that his body got some type of allergic reaction to the cannabis, to the point where it almost resulted in his death. and then he had to be rushed to the emergency. And then basically the doctor pretty much told him that, you know, that he had an allergic reaction to this type of cannabis, and the doctor told him that he shouldn't do this anymore, shouldn't, you know, be taking cannabis, because next time he might not be so lucky and he might really pass away. But then he didn't follow doctor's orders and he did it again, and then you know, next thing you know, he ends up dying. They associated the death with some type of, you know, some type of like drug for, you know, for headaches. But I read in other texts where, you know, the cause of death essentially could have been the allergic reaction to the cannabis. But the information, you know, the truth could potentially have been hidden from the public, you know, in order to protect his reputation. So that aspect is something that I read up on as well. Now, a lot of this stuff, you know, it's like he said, she said. I mean, you're reading information from various different people, and whatever information that they allow you to receive based on the books out there is what you're limited to. But that's, as far as my research is concerned, that's my understanding of it. As far as him being sad and depressed and too proud to show it, I mean, that's one thing I wondered about is, like, you know, he got rushed to the emergency at one time, and then the doctors were able to revive him. And that's a fact, you know, that's something where you can't really hide that information. It's a fact, you know, he got rushed to emergency, the doctors were able to revive him, but at the same time, it's like, you know, they warned him to slow down, you know, like, you know, you're doing too much at once, you know, you need to slow down, and they warned him not to take the cannabis, and then he still didn't slow down, and he still took the cannabis. It's almost like, you know, it's almost like asking for early death, you know, and it seemed like he couldn't just, like, show to the people, you know, some of his weaknesses, you know what I mean? Like, he would hide everything, and that's not good, you know. They ended up taking his life away, you know. So I don't think that's a good thing, you know. I think that's part of the spiritual development that I think he had to work on, or he could have worked on, is learning to, like, you know, learn to, like, let people know that you're human, you know, that you have weaknesses as well, and that you know, to slow it down. You know, you don't gotta be so fast, you know, go so fast all the time and overwork yourself. You know, he even had a quote, you know, like, I'd rather overtrain than undertrain. You know, he's the type of person who just kept pushing himself so much to the point where he ended up just dying early. And that's something that I think is not a good thing, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's good to relax and just calm down and just, like, not overdo it, you know? So, you know, I made a video in the past speaking about this, that potentially maybe he's just somebody that almost wanted to die early in order to retain that legendary status that couldn't be taken away. You know what I mean? Like, when people die at the peak of their fame, that pretty much puts them at a level where it's unattainable. And like Michael Jordan, you know, he lived through the peak of his fame, and now, like, he can't be considered a legend because he's still alive, you know. And like legends like You know, say like Rocky Marciano, he's undefeated in the boxing, and then he dies. I think it was in a plane crash or something like that. That's something where you can't, like, you know, that was one of his main ambitions, was to become a household name like Coca-Cola, and so well known, you know, well known by the entire world. And you know, dying at the peak of your development is almost like a level that others cannot really achieve. You know, it's going, you know, and maybe he was so focused and driven by that goal that maybe he made these certain decisions knowing that he was going to die early, so then he could achieve that legendary status. And that's why even 40 years later after his death, we're still talking about him. And that's why the UFC and Dana White and still trying to use his name to make money. And that's why there's so many people around all over this world that are trying to make money off of him with the Jeet Kune Do. And people still watch his movies. People see him as the pioneer for the martial arts in America. He's all over the posters everywhere, and he's on t-shirts in Chinatown, and that's because he died at the peak of his fame. And you know, nobody knows exactly what was going on, but that's a potential possibility in my eyes, is that he could have planned it out, you know, knew that, hey, you know, I don't mind dying early, because that's just gonna turn me into a legend. So that's my feedback on this guy's email.